Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future, coming to you with another college and career conversations. Those of you that watch this on a regular basis, you know that I am passionate about making sure that we're introducing students to Black and Brown career professionals because representation matters. And working with young people, it's all about career awareness, career development, and career exploration. And one of the best ways to do that is to give them the opportunity to have conversations with people that look like them in all varieties of career pathways. This evening, I am so thrilled to have the guests that we have. Earlier, we were talking, and I'm always talking about when my students are interested in a career in healthcare, they're usually thinking doctor or nurse. And I am so thrilled to have our guest this evening because I really want people to know that there are multiple pathways to a career in healthcare. So, right after our brief interlude, we will come back with our guests this evening. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Back here. Now, I do have to let folks know I'm getting a little bit of feedback, as you can probably hear, and I'm not quite sure why it's doing it. So just bear with us. We've switched microphones off and on. We've changed volumes. So if anybody out there has any hints, let me know. So let me introduce our guest this evening. Today we have with us Miss Chalika Ruiz, who is the director of a clinical laboratory. She has 22 years of worth of experience in the clinical laboratory setting. She is currently director of laboratory outpatient services. This is like really making me crazy, and I'm not sure why it's doing. Okay. Chalika is a wife, a mother, a daughter, a cousin, a friend, a Girl Scout troop leader, a class mom, a mentor, avid shopper, God-loving, and consistently appreciative of everything. Knowing you, that last bit about being appreciative of everything, that is you to a T. Chalika, welcome. We are glad to have
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. And I forgot to mention that Chalika has a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry and a master's in healthcare administration.
Yes.
So this will give you an idea of what type of education you could possibly need in order to move into this particular career pathway. So Chalika, tell
Yeah.
us, who were you as a young girl? How did STEM become a part of your life as a high school student?
Actually, I can go all the way back to when I was 5 years old. STEM actually became a part of my life through my grandmother, and she was a nurse. And every night, my grandfather and I used to go pick her up. She worked the 3 to 11:30 shift at a hospital, and we would pick her. I would stay up late on purpose so that we could just go pick her up from work. And back in those days, I could go inside the hospital and I was able to walk around the floors and she was able to show me off. And I that's literally where I begin my love of just science in general and just caring for people and being good steward, of other people's health and their health care, and just trying to figure out how in the world could I do something as great as, my superhero, which was my grandmother.
Oh, definitely.
And that's literally how it all started. And I actually became very good friends as I grew up with some of the doctors and nurses that actually remembered me as a child.
Oh, that is
running through those
fantastic.
hallways. Yes, because I became the first thing I did during high school was become a candy striper at Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. And that was my first unofficial volunteer work that I did, reading to small children, learning basically the ins and outs of how a hospital works. And that's how I found out that there were different aspects to a hospital,
Oh,
just by talking and communicating and networking with people while I was there.
that is fantastic. I'm
Yeah,
always trying to encourage my young folks to get out there and find those opportunities to volunteer. That's one of the ways I think students have an opportunity to find out if that's an area that they're interested in.
absolutely.
I'd hate for them to spend all that money on college or get into college and say, 3 years into this program, this isn't really what I want to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I could definitely say that, through that experience, through that volunteer work, I was able to establish, the lifelong friendships and lifelong networking, which is very important in any profession, but even more so in healthcare, because healthcare is a small circle and people know people who know people. So once you know a person and you have become genuine in what you want to do, and even if you don't know, but you're just genuine about wanting to learn what you don't know, someone is always willing to help you. And that is what I learned early on.
That is so
So as I
important.
actually went to high school, I went to a science and tech high school in Fort Washington, Maryland. And from there, it actually just grew because my major was in science and it was a STEM high school, which actually propelled me even further to want to learn more about science and math and technology. And, in the 90s, we were just learning about, internet and things like that. So everything was brand new. So I feel like we were in the perfect opportunity to learn everything as it was coming out.
That is so good. So I love that. So you actually had the opportunity to go to a STEM high school. So that gave
Yes.
you further information, further opportunities to learn about STEM fields and all the different fields that were there. Is that
Yes.
Mickey, is that Mickey in the background?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is.
Hi, Mickey.
But
We we know
but
we
yes,
know in the virtual world that our four-legged family members always show up.
yes, always.
Always. They do
And so I
show
do
up.
apologize.
Oh, don't
but
apologize to Mickey.
but yes, so in doing that, it actually allowed me to see a different side to the laboratory, and I started to look further and further into what we call our core science classes, but also looking into our laboratory part of our science classes. So those actually became even more of an interest to me than the actual science class itself, because I learned more hands-on, like most young people do at
Mhm.
in that time frame. And I felt like I just needed to know, I need you to show me, how does a chemical react? I just don't want to read it in a book. So in your lab classes, that's actually what you learn. And you actually get to do that. And no one is faulting you for making a mistake. And you're actually able to go back, fix it, develop a new hypothesis, and then come up with a new um, synopsis to what you're trying to figure out. And that's pretty much what science is. And even if you don't love healthcare or science in general, it's an everyday life tool to think about. If you can't get something right the first time, you can always start again. You don't have to be put into a bubble of, okay, I need to do it this way or that way. That is the beauty of science. It allows you to make a mistake, develop a new hypothesis, purpose, and then move to new procedures and come to a conclusion.
Oh, I love that because I think kids today are so afraid of making mistakes.
Yes.
So this allows
And
them the perfect opportunity to make a mistake, but to learn from that
yes,
mistake. That
exactly.
yeah.
And it allowed me to where I was able to attend University of Maryland with a biochemistry degree. And while there, I initially wanted to be pre-med. But while I was in one of my lab classes, in my anatomy and physiology class, I was speaking with my professor, and she was explaining to me, you know what, I need a TA for one of my lab classes. So do you think that you'll be available to help me, after school, to set up the beakers and set up, the Bunsen burners, and help develop some of the lab tests that we have to do for the upcoming class that I have? And I was like, what? Okay. Yeah. You know, and I know that sounds geeky, but it was actually the best decision that I made, because it allowed me to not only view what I did not know, but to see that actually this is a job, this is a profession. Like a lot of people do not know that laboratory services is an actual profession. And today is actually Medical Laboratory Week, where we celebrate all people that work in the laboratory services, from medical technologists to molecular and diagnostic pathologists to the medical assistants, as well as anyone there processing samples, and even down to our couriers. Everyone is part of laboratory services. These are the people that once your blood is drawn, it then goes to us to process and analyze, and then it is sent to the doctor for the final analysis.
That is so wonderful. I was just trying to look it up like real quick online so I could stick it in there. So I'm
Yes.
looking at it, this medical
So
laboratory.
the best website, we have many collegiate avenues that we're a part of. So ASCP is a degree, is a license that all medical technologists have to have in order to work in a laboratory in any of the 50 states. And that degree, that license will allow you to not only analyze samples, but to result them and to process them. So with that degree, that website will give you all the information you need on laboratory services.
Okay, and I'm putting putting the website up here now.
Yeah.
This is also it's also telling us about that it's National Lab Week,
Yes.
but it also will give you all that information about membership, about certification,
Yes.
about what the organization is about. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I'm always talking to students about one of the best ways to find out about a profession is to look at their professional organizations. What
Yes.
are their professional organizations about? Read their websites. If you have opportunities to go do any free webinars or what have you, because so much is virtual these days,
Yes.
to take that opportunity to do that. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that.
Yes. And it is a very good resource that, even with the amount of experience that I have, and I've been in the laboratory for a very long time, I started off as an accessioner, which is the person who actually just processes the samples. And that's actually a huge job, because that person is responsible for the basic demographics of an individual. So just if I was to get your name, date of birth, and your lab test incorrect at any point, that trickle effect would not only affect laboratory, it would then affect billing, it will affect insurance, it will affect processing, it would affect the actual test being ran properly, the results being given to the doctor correctly, and then ultimately how medication is processed, how patients are treated with that process. And all of that stem from the accessioner getting your name, demographics, date of birth, address, phone number correct. So when the doctor asks you for that information, when you go to the doctor the next time, it's very important that you give them all of that information, because it not only helps the doctors and the nurses in their office, but once your blood work goes to the laboratory, it assists us as well to make sure you have adequate results and proficiency, and your testing is done correctly and accurately.
That is so important for everyone to know because, sometimes people get a little upset and say, "Why do they keep asking me this information?"
Yes,
But it's so, so important for, as you just pointed out, to
yeah.
get that
And the
information.
different, and you notice that I didn't just mention just the doctors and the nurses. You have multiple other departments that are affected by that error: billing, finance, the couriers, the processors, the technologists, then the doctor and the patient ultimately,
Right.
because that can determine, it's so many avenues as to what one error can create.
That is amazing. So, folks that are joining in or folks that are watching this on the replay, please make sure you go to the website for the American Society for Clinical Pathology so you can find out more about this organization, find out more about the career, because it's so important as professionals that we become part of our professional associations. And many healthcare fields, as with other professional pathways, do require you to keep your certification up to date. So you need to make sure that
Yes,
you're doing that. And for anybody, if you
yes.
have a question or comment out there, please join in the conversation.
Yes, I can give you a little tidbit. In college, it took me approximately 4 years as a regular 4-year degree to finish it. And you know that it doesn't necessarily have to be in the sciences. You can have a degree. There are multiple avenues for you to become a medical technologist. So
Okay.
you can actually have a degree in other areas of your interest, but the basic core sciences is what is the main factor. So even if you find yourself in a profession of finance or in a profession of contracting, for instance,
Hmm.
if you have your basic chemistries, your basic sciences, then you can then too still apply for your ASCP license to become a technologist. Getting the information early is the best way,
Oh,
and looking
I
for
thank you so
avenues of
much.
networking.
I thank you so much for saying that because so many times when students are talking about going into the healthcare field, they all think they have to major in biology, chemistry, biochemistry, or whatever. And we're always trying to convince them that no, you don't have to. But
No.
so I'm glad we have a professional here in the
Yes.
field
Yeah.
telling
And
students.
that site will actually explain that to you as well. There are almost, I think, 7 or 8 pathways to become a technologist, and it gives you the detailed information that you need in order to do so.
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell me, so what was your, so after graduating from college, what was your very first job and what were the responsibilities in that
Oh,
field?
wow. So my very first job was working at NIH, actually, and I it was during Ebola.
Ooh,
And I was a research technologist. At the time, I was a technician, research technician. So that means that someone who's coming into the profession with no experience. Basically, you have a high school, and you have a college degree, but you have zero lab bench work experience.
okay.
So because I did have my internships and things of that nature, they're levels. So you have level 1 through 4. I was a level 2 because I did have my internships prior to as a TA,
Okay.
knowing the basics of an internal laboratory process and how it worked. It will propel you to the next level. But your skill set, you still have to follow rules. You still have to follow someone else. There is still guidelines to follow. Policies and procedures are very important. SOPs, which is your standard of operations and procedures, are very important for any aspect of any part of healthcare, especially laboratory. Um, Knowing your guidelines for the state that you're working in, and as well as the area that you're working in, is also very important. And just knowing that you have to be accurate, neat, organized, and dedicated to what you're doing. And literally, attention to detail is everything in this profession.
Okay. So again, I just want to
Yeah.
let people know you started out as a technologist at the National Institute of Health, and you just gave some really good information, because one of the things we always talk to our students about, well, we call them soft skills, but they're not really soft skills. They're those other skills that you need in order to be successful in on the job. And just talking about being organized and being neat and what have you, that's important. And it's important, I think, for young folks to understand that there are certain protocols that need to be
Yes.
followed.
Yes, because my job entailed me actually dealing with a bio level 4 and 5 biohazard. So if I was not following signs, was not following directions, it's almost like driving a car. If you have your license and you don't know what all the signs mean, you're more than likely to get into an accident. So it's the same thing in the laboratory setting. If you're not following directions and following the rules, you could easily get into an accident. And it would not only jeopardize yourself, but the laboratory and the people around you.
Yeah.
And I was dealing with biohazard levels
Oof.
like what we know today for coronavirus.
Right.
So if I was not careful, I could have too had Ebola, been in the hospital,
Mhm.
injured myself or injured others, even taking it home with me because I did not follow what we call our standard operating procedures, which is robing and derobing correctly, even following the procedure of putting on your gloves the correct way, taking off your lab coat the correct way. There's a correct way to do everything in a lab to not only keep yourself safe, but to keep the people around you safe. And also, even your home. When you're traveling home, you don't even realize when you get into your car that you're carrying things with you from your job.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That
Yes.
sounds a little bit like Nightmare on Elm Street or something.
Yes. Or outbreak.
Yes, outbreak,
The
definitely.
movie Outbreak is used very often as an example of what you need to do and how you need to protect yourself. And just related to this day and time, I was front and center during this pandemic, working in area New York hospitals, 18, 20-hour shifts, and seeing the devastation here in New York firsthand.
Mhm.
And just going back to what I learned as a technician all the way back from when I graduated from college. Those skills helped me to be calm, level headed, literally carry my team to a calmness that was beyond even our rapport during a time of confusion and turmoil. But we made it through, and we hope and pray that it does not return. But you have to stay cautious and vigilant. But learning the skills that I did that 20 years prior has carried me throughout my entire profession.
So with that being said, what would you say, um, what has been the most trying part of your job? The most
Hmm.
challenging part of the work you do?
I would say to date, will probably have to be will probably have to be coronavirus. I mean, that was a doozy. That actually created a space where you had to question whether or not you even wanted to stay in laboratory, whether you wanted to stay in healthcare. It was just beyond rapport. It was the type of thing that you only saw on television, and you were actually living that movie or that sitcom, and there was no commercial break to it.
Mhm.
So I would actually say that was it, because we didn't know what was happening, and being that I am in a laboratory, we were the forefront people. Every time you hear in the news, well, just go get tested. Well, I mean, those specimens came to us, and we were losing people just like everyday people were losing people. The staff was not adequate. Equipment wasn't there. Everything that you saw on TV was correct. We didn't have all the equipment that we needed. We didn't have things that, needed to be there at our beck and call, which was usually there on a daily basis, from tubes to lab coats to whatever.
Right.
Um, So I would say that was quite challenging to say the least, but we prevailed. And because everyone that works around me and was working with me, we all felt we used our past experiences to
Right.
propel us to get through this together.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I know when it was hitting and we were in the throes of it and they were talking about the numbers in New York. I know I thought about you often
Yes,
because I knew you were there in the middle of it.
yes. And
Um,
they kept saying testing, just go get tested. It's just go get tested. But they weren't realizing that, even though you were getting testing, there's people who have to actually run the test. And we
right.
actually have to be the people there to process the test. And if those people are not well to do that, then who will?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So after your initial job as a technologist at the National Institute of Health,
Yes.
what was your next position? I'm trying to give kids an idea of what the
Yes.
pathway may look like.
So, okay. So once I finished there, I actually started working for a biotech company, which is another spin off of now. So I can tell you, I started off in government, which was NIH. Then I moved to what is considered biotechnology. So that is like your almost like a Pfizer or somewhat between a pharmaceutical and biotech company. It's
Okay.
not necessarily hospital, but it's still healthcare. So they focus more on being a reference lab or a receptor of lab specimen from other areas. So they're not the main portal. So you wouldn't go to them um, verbatim to get things done. They would be sent your labs from another location and to be processed, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
It does. It
So
does. I'm following.
and they also in biotech, they use STEM very much because they're incorporating technologies um, and doing a lot of research for new developments, such as the viruses, the vaccines for viruses, things of that nature. So
Okay.
you would see a lot of that in biotech world, which is another avenue that a technologist can go into without even going into a hospital setting.
Okay, that's good to know because I know
Yes.
sometimes, I shouldn't say I laugh, but sometimes when I'm talking with students, I can remember one student one year when I was still a high school counselor in Rhode Island, who wanted to be a nurse, and
Yes.
we were talking about all the roles and responsibilities of a nurse, and then I remember the student said to me, "But I really don't like the sight of blood," and I'm
Yes.
like, "Ooh, I don't know if then a hospital setting is the place for you."
Exactly,
But
exactly.
here again, here's an example of how you can work in healthcare and not be in a hospital setting.
Yes, you don't have to be, and you don't even have to work on the bench like I did. You don't even have to see blood because the IT people were very important. The finance people were very important. Our software engineers, very important people. Our mechanical engineers who actually develop our analyzers. You could be a researcher to actually develop assays. If you like reading, being a biotech um, what is it called? Biotech publisher. So you're actually writing essays and delivering them to what we call the New England medicine paperwork to be published.
Okay.
What you will hear on the news, how they say, oh, we refer to New England medicine based on this study that was done, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
That would be that person,
Okay.
and that person could be just an English major that loves to read and loves to develop new things based on what a doctor or a physicist or a PhD student has developed based off of any type of assay that they want to find an answer for or a cure for, or
Okay.
something that they just have a question about. They just want it to be emphasized so that other people can use it. You don't necessarily have to find the answer. But if you just find a part of the answer, someone else will come along and say, "Oh, you know what? I think I can, you know, develop something further beyond what this person has wrote." And that's actually what science is. It's a collection of ideas from multiple people and multiple sources that create what we know to be science.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take this show on the road, Miss Ruiz. This is
I
I'm
love,
learning.
but I
I'm
love
learning.
my job. That's the funny
Yeah, I was not a I was not a
I
strong
love my
plan
job. I
student.
do. I do. I love it. I love it. And I love just like being either in the background or the forefront and now in the administrative um of just knowing what I know to help others, and what I don't know fascinates me even more because I know that there's more to learn. And just being able to be helpful, that's really just my goal in everything that I do. Yeah.
That is so good. So you went back to school and got your master's.
Yes.
Um, and was that your goal all along to work towards administration in healthcare?
Well, I kind of stumbled on that because once I actually um I moved from the biotech company,
Mhm.
and I was actually offered a position one day just by a random phone call from a recruiter. And she asked me if I could come to an interview. And I said, okay, no problem. And she said, it's on 42nd and 8th Avenue. And being in Washington, D.C., I'm like, 42nd and 8th Avenue, where is that? I have no idea where that is. And I'm like, thinking. And she's like, okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And I had to call her back and I said, silly question. So I don't, and at the time it was MapQuest. We had no Google Maps. Okay.
Mm,
So I said, I said, silly question. I don't know where 42nd and 8th Avenue is. And I've lived here like my whole life. And she said, oh, we're in New York City. I said, oh, okay. So I went, I found my way and I went the very next day to the interview. And it ended up being another biotech company, which ends up being Genzyme Genetics, what we know now as LabCorp.
okay.
And that's a very famous name that most
Yes.
people know. Yes. And it ended up being that I was becoming a molecular technologist for them. So I literally packed up my car and multiple people cars, and I said, "We're going up 95 just to pay a visit. And by the way, I have a place. And by the way, I start work Monday. And by the way, yeah, you can leave me here." So fast forward almost 20 years, I have been here. Um, and I have learned a lot from, just my experiences from going from biotech to government to now hospital settings. And getting my master's was actually due to one of my mentors, who was one of our PhD and MD doctors in our laboratory setting. He did most of our pathology work. And he told me, Shlika, you don't have to be on the bench for a very long time. You could actually start to look into running and, developing your ideas and your perspective on a more managerial level. And I was like, okay, all right. Because I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and especially not in my age. And at that time, I was in my 20s, and I was like, yeah, right, whatever. He, no, you can do it. I believe that you can do it. I said, okay. So I went back. It took me 2 years, and I got my master's in healthcare administration. And right after that, it allowed doors to open for me to where I could apply then for managerial roles, supervisors, assistant manager, and now director.
Okay.
So from there, I have been able to learn a lot, develop a lot of friendships, network, and above all, even with all those titles, I'm
Mhm.
still learning. Every day, there are different aspects to my job. There are multiple things that I deal with now, more financing, more
Mm.
forecasting, more budgeting, more sales, more of a where does the laboratory take the hospital in general? How do you incorporate what you do now for the overall purpose of this hospital? Not more so how do I run the tests and how do I result them, but now I'm dealing more with how do we sustain revenue? How do we obtain more incentives? How do we obtain employees? You know,
Mm.
those type of things. So I have literally gone through the ranks of laboratory services, and I would say it's very rewarding because at some point I actually branched off and I went into sales. As you know, I'm very bubbly and I
Yes,
like
you
to talk to
are.
people. And I like to talk to people. And I found out that there was a such thing called laboratory sales. And I said, "You're joking. I can incorporate shopping and laboratory all at the same time." My two favorite things. Oh my God. So they told me, no, not quite. You're not shopping, but you're allowing physicians to use laboratory services and you're encouraging them to use laboratory services within the hospital. I said, that means I get to go outside. I'm not sitting behind a desk. I can go talk to people and tell them about laboratory services and have them come and work. Sign me up. Sign me up.
That's right up your alley.
That is what I did. So I did pivot for about 4 years and I worked in laboratory sales where I actually recruited physicians offices, private offices, to work collectively with the hospital to bring their laboratory services to the hospital. So that was very rewarding. I was able to get out, talk to people, network, develop relationships with various physicians, the gatekeepers, which are their MAs, and to just have an overall well-rounded conversation with physicians and doctors, nurses, MAs about laboratory services. And from a perspective of a technologist, someone who actually has done the work and someone who
Mm.
has actually put in the effort. I can explain to you the difference between a lavender top and a gold top and why you put this at this temperature versus another. I didn't have to go and get a third party's explanation as to why, because I knew hands on why you did those things. So
That is
it
amazing.
developed more of a friendship.
Right. I
Yeah.
just love just listening to you in this short period of time, the number of possibilities
Yes.
within this field are
Yes.
incredible, are
Yes.
absolutely incredible. And I love how you were able to move into the laboratory sales because that fits your personality
Yeah.
so well. That fits your personality so well.
Yes. Yes.
Because, like, again, anybody, like you said, anybody that knows you knows how outgoing you are. So
Yes.
that's amazing. And I like what you said about because you came in with the experience, with the actual hands-on experience, that the doctors and other folks that you had to talk to trusted you more.
Correct.
You knew what you were talking about.
Correct.
Yes.
And I
That really
wasn't
is
just reading
working.
from a pamphlet. I was giving actual examples of why you shouldn't do this, or why things should happen this way, or
Right.
why it shouldn't happen this way. And they actually trusted and developed more of a confidence to say, okay, I know that you know what you're talking about. So
Mhm.
of course we'll send you our blood samples. We'll do whatever you need us to do. And we will do it happily. Yes. So
That is so it's amazing, and I hope for any students that get a chance to see this on the replay or that join in, that you see your possible selves in all of this. There is just so many pathways within this. Just is just a small piece of
yes,
healthcare. This
yes,
is such a tiny piece of healthcare,
it's
and
true.
you show how you could go from working, like you said, at the bench to doing sales to being out doing more managerial stuff. So definitely,
Yes, it definitely is an eye opener, and everyone has a perception of laboratory based on CSI. you know. And that's funny because actually forensic science is a completely different avenue from even what I'm talking about, because forensic science deals primarily with forensics, whereas I'm dealing more so with clinical. So I'm dealing with people that are well, sick, injured, in a clinical setting, hospital, doctor's office. Whereas forensics deals more so on the law enforcement side.
Okay.
So even with that, there are still different avenues, but it's the same pathway, but you can go left or right, even within the laboratory.
Okay.
So you could find yourself in forensics where you're the person that's being called to go to court to testify.
Mm,
Or you could find yourself where I was, behind the desk or behind the bench dealing with clinical samples. Or you could find yourself in research, just doing developmental work. There's multiple ways that you can enter into this field. And once you're actually in this field, you can then branch off to other aspects of healthcare. The umbrella is so wide and the net is so broad that it's it's beyond your imagination. And we like to call it in the laboratory world, our own community, because you literally have everything from an electrician to a chef to a barber to a technologist, to a secretary. Everyone from the greeter to security is a healthcare employee, and each one of them hold a value that is beyond just what we consider just a doctor or a nurse.
okay.
Each and every one of those aspects create what we know to be our healthcare world.
That is so important. I love how you talked about the community that is created in this particular field by looking at the value and the roles of everybody that
Yes,
steps foot in that environment. I think that's so important because I don't know if we always think about the people around us that are doing a lot of the support work
correct.
in order for the healthcare environment to continue
And to
serving.
strive, right. And it
Yeah.
really was the forefront. I mean, coronavirus really brought it to the forefront because
Mm,
everyone actually was able to see on television what we actually did. You saw the cameras in the lab more. People actually knew what a SOP was. People now actually know what PPE is.
mm,
These are acronyms that you learn on day one, but now people know them to be part of their everyday.
right.
Personal protective equipment. You know about standard procedures of operation. You know about assays. You know about variants.
Yes.
Things that you would not think that you knew, you now know. And guess what? That's the beginnings of a scientist. That's the beginnings of someone in the healthcare field.
That's amazing. Now we're getting that feedback, so folks, just bear with us. Now, if you had to give a high school person some advice on moving into healthcare, what would you tell them?
Go with the open mind.
Mm,
Go with the open mind and see what you want to see. Don't let anyone try to persuade you left or right and convince you that, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a nurse, you have to do this, you have to do that. The oyster is so big that you could literally find your footing based on what you want to do. If you're an artist, do you know that we have tons of graphic engineers that create the
mm,
buildings that are the hospitals and the clinics and the doctor's offices? Do you know that if you're a designer, we need someone to go and purchase chairs and decorate the offices and make things nice and pretty? So just have an open mind when you go into healthcare, because once you actually look into the job openings, you'll see that there's something for everyone.
that is so good. That is so good. I'm glad you said that again because it's so important that students see the array of career pathways that are out there. Now,
Yes.
one of the things you mentioned earlier was about having a mentor.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about the mentors you've had over time.
Oh my goodness, I've had so many. I can I can start all the way back from high school. I still remember my science teacher, Dr. Suplowitz, one of the best science teachers in the universe, from high school, who actually allowed me to be one of his lab TAs. From college, Dr. Hines, who was a excellent Black professor, excellent, beautiful Black woman who showed me that being in science did not have to look like what we saw in the books. You know, she showed me that being a Black woman in science, yes, you have to stand up tall with your shoulders back and know that, you know, you're walking into a room confident, knowing that what you know is what you know, and don't let anyone um, try to derail you or try to put you in the back of the classroom. That you stand firm on what you know and what you believe, and that you know that you want to do something and that you're going to go head first. And then from graduate school, even Dr. Morgan, excellent, excellent professor who was there for me with any questions that I had, making sure that I had the full knowledge and understanding of the administrative roles that I was soon going to undertake and actually use the skills that I've learned today. Oh my goodness, from each one of my jobs, my all of my supervisors, from my bosses. I mean, just it's
Right.
so many. I can't even. It's so many people that even the littlest thing that they did, it
Mhm.
could be something as small as one of my old supervisors was just giving me information on how to correctly develop my essays and my policies and procedures, not knowing that later on I would actually be showing someone else how to do that.
Do that.
And it was just something small, you know, that, oh, put the cursor there, don't put it over there, use this as your header, not your footer. Just small things like that that allowed me to then use that information to help others.
That is wonderful.
Yes.
I love the collaborative nature of
Yes.
that you're detailing to us in the healthcare field. So that definitely is something that students that are watching this or parents who are going to make their students watch this, um, I really hope that you get the sense of the collaboration that's necessary in the healthcare field.
Yes. Networking is definitely key.
And
Yes.
making sure that you have mentors.
Yes.
That's, I think students sometimes don't understand how important mentors are at every stage of your career.
Yes. Because if you have someone, like you said, in your intro, that look like you, talk like you know, I walk into a room, I'm probably one of the younger
Yeah.
administrators. I am I am definitely the brownest. I am definitely the most cheerful even sometimes. You know, I walk in there with a perception of I'm a suit, but I'm not a suit. You know, I can talk the lingo, I can walk the walk, you know, I can do everything that you can do, you know, and
That is
I
so
try
important.
to stay level and grounded so that I can relate to the generation that is coming behind me, because I want them to be as comfortable as I am in my skin and in my profession as they will be in whatever they choose to do.
Oh, I love it. I thank you so much for that. So I know, you have a young daughter. Is she showing an interest in STEM?
She actually is. Yes, she has hopes and dreams of being a veterinarian, and not just any veterinarian. She wants to be a marine biologist.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
we have definitely tried to motivate her as much as possible into doing whatever she sees fit, even if she changes her mind. Yes, she's only 6 at the moment, but if she changes her mind at 16, uh, my husband and I have been here for her, and we'll make sure to just create the foundations that will allow her to know that the world is huge. The world is beyond New York. The world is beyond even the 50 states.
Mm,
Letting her know and letting her see that uh, there's ample, ample, ample amount of opportunities for her to explore, to see, to learn, to taste, to smell, and to know that she doesn't even have to pick one thing.
right.
Like myself, I was able to go different avenues within one field. I'm teaching her that she can go multiple avenues in multiple fields because now with technology, she could do one or two or three jobs and still maintain her career path.
That is, students that are coming up in this time now, they're so lucky. I was laughing when you were talking about you had to use MapQuest for directions.
Yes, they
And I'm
probably don't even
thinking,
know what that is.
hmm,
Yes.
in my time, we were getting out of paper maps.
Yes.
We were going to AAA, getting one of those cryptics and have
Yes.
them map it out for us. So we've
Yes.
come a long way and
Well,
we
you see
survived.
how much STEM is very important.
Yes, it sure is. It
Because I can
sure
tell
is.
you by time she is probably our age, she will probably be hologrammed to wherever she needs to go. To the point where she probably will still be in her pajamas, but her avatar will be at work, you
We'll
know?
be at work. Yes, that is so true. Oh my goodness. That is amazing. That
Yeah, so but yes, we foster pretty much everything that she loves and that she likes to the point where my house looks like Animal Kingdom because we want her to at least get the atmosphere. So we have a dog, as you heard earlier. I also have a rabbit. We have fish. She is also an equestrian, so we have a horse. We visit the aquarium almost weekly. Uh, she is very interested in all parts of biology, chemistries. She likes doing science experiments and, learning different things. And being a Girl Scout is actually helping her as well
mm,
because they're fostering STEM as one of the electives. It's not just about camping. So it even for as young as kindergarten, they now have STEM as one of their core journeys for the girls.
right.
So that's excellent in the sense that she's now learning coding. She's learning four different languages, and we're just preparing her to be a well rounded individual that loves shopping, laughing, joking, and learning all in
Uh,
the same time.
I I love that because you know what? A lot of times parents will ask me, they say, okay, my student isn't ready. They're not high school, they're not middle school, they're elementary or younger. They said, what do I do to prepare them for higher education? Everything you just said is what parents can do.
Yes,
Fostering their curiosity,
yes,
giving them,
yes,
supporting them in a whatever kind of way that you can, making sure. I mean, our biggest thing, God, when my guys were young, I mean, we were in the children's museum like
yes.
every weekend.
We are
We were
members.
always
Hmm.
there, you
Yes.
know.
Just the smallest thing. I mean, you don't even realize that just the smallest thing that costs you close to nothing could literally open up a world beyond even their imagination. Because sometimes you have to think about it in a child's perspective.
Right.
Because we're older, you sometimes lose that childlike perspective
Mhm.
of how life is viewed. And in their eyes, everything is new.
Yes.
So just the smallest thing is a new awakening or a new adventure. Just recent we went away for her birthday and just getting on the airplane, she wanted to know, well, how does the plane actually fly? And
Mhm.
why does it make that noise? And why is the cabin pressure like this? And why and why and why? And they were not annoying questions because as a scientist and as
Mhm.
a healthcare professional, they took me back to when I was her age, going to the hospital with my grandmother and asking those exact same questions
Yes.
and asking why. Why is the most important three letters that anyone can ask and the most important three letters that can be answered? Because
Uh,
that means that your mind is still working and you're still wanting to be curious about the world around you.
Oh,
So she
I
has a
love that.
passport. We're learning finance. We're learning
Okay,
about investments. And that's the other thing too. Want to make sure that she's financially stable
okay.
to foster whatever she wants to foster in her life, and
Oh,
that she's able to motivate others, even at this young age, about what you need to do financially, emotionally, spiritually, to grow into a well-rounded individual.
oh, I don't know, Shalika. I think you've got to write your book now. That's your next step.
Well, you know you'll be in it.
You've got to write a book. That's the next step. And speaking of books, one of the things I always love to do, and my audience knows how much I'm big on literacy and big on people reading.
Yes.
I happened to be watching the Spectrum News the other day. Actually, it was yesterday morning while I was
Oh,
getting ready to go out for my walk. And this wonderful story came up that I'm going to share with you. This professor of biochemistry had just written a book, and so I'm going to share with the audience this book. So the book is, so this is actually the news story, and I'll put the URL for the news story in the chat. But the book is Sakaya and Professor Jenkins, the Vitamin C Project, do real research with Professor Jenkins. And in the book, at the end of the story, she actually gives you the 4 ingredients and the directions on how to do this research. And what you're doing is you're measuring the vitamin C in orange juice.
oh, beautiful.
Yes, so the whole experiment is set up there in the book. So folks, this book, it's on Amazon. I went to Barnes and Nobles and it's not in the stores yet, but it is on Amazon. So my copy comes tomorrow, so I can't wait to look.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes, but definitely make sure that you look at this is the URL that will take you to this story. And so you'll get to see an interview there with her. She has Professor Jenkins has a YouTube channel that she just started. And she's also going around doing workshops and seminars in different schools and churches. So she's local to North Carolina. So again, that's something that you can share with your students. So folks, this is make a wonderful birthday gift or a Christmas present.
Beautiful. Yes, and that opens up your minds to research and development, which is excellent.
Yes, that is so true. Shalika, this has been so informative because I have learned so much about the different career pathways, and I know I'm going to have to go back and take a second and a third listen and write some of those down and make sure that they're in the show notes. My trusty assistant Peyton Bradshaw, who is one of my former students, is she takes care of the show notes for me. So shout
Okay.
out to Peyton for the work that she's doing.
Yes.
So again, I thank you so much for being here this evening, for giving up your
Anytime, my
time
dear.
and showing us the breadth and the depth of being a technologist.
Yes.
So,
It's a very rewarding career that will span a lifetime, as you can see. And it will be so rewarding because you don't realize that you don't have to be right in front of the patient to help a patient.
oh, I love that. You don't have to
So,
be right in front of a patient to help a patient.
yes.
Yes, so definitely have to get that quote in there, 'cause
I need
that's
a
great.
t-shirt now.
I know you need that T-shirt. That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. So for those folks who joined us live or those that are watching this on the replay, thank you so much for tuning in and for joining the conversation. Now, just because the conversation is coming to an end does not mean that you can't still send in questions. You can just go on my Facebook page or the YouTube channel and put in your comments, and we will definitely get back to you to answer your questions. Next week, I am thrilled to have one of my former high school students as our
Mhm.
guest. And he is actually graduating this month with his PhD.
Very nice.
He will talk to us about the work that he's doing in helping Black males be successful in education. So
Excellent.
that's this week.
Excellent.
So Shalika, again, thank you so much. Like I said, I learned so much from this conversation. I appreciate you taking time because I know you just came in from work and your days are long.
Yes.
So I,
Anything for you.
oh,
Anything. Anytime.
thank you, thank you. You're a sweetheart. I really
No.
appreciate it. So,
Say
folks,
hi to the fellas for me.
I will. I definitely will. So, folks, I will see you next Monday. Chalika, hold on a minute. So, everyone, I'll see you next Monday, same time, with our guest, Dr. Franklin Soares. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.